Welcome back, everyone. Our guest today is a communications leader, an entrepreneur, and an advocate who has built a career helping people find and use their voice. She's the president of Chikmedia, a full-service marketing and PR firm, and she's a national spokesperson on skin cancer awareness. But her path to this work was shaped deeply by personal experiences, from being diagnosed with melanoma at just age 19 and then leaving a workplace after experiencing sexual harassment to start her own company. She didn't just change career, she changed the rules for herself and everybody on her team. So today we are talking resilience, reinvention, and what it really takes to speak up when it matters most. So welcome, Meghan Rothschild, to our podcast. We're so happy to have you.
Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. All right. So let's jump right in, Meghan. What was little
Sure.
Meghan think she was going to be when she was a kid, right? Like, what did little Meghan think? Like, this is what I
Oh
see
man.
myself doing, because I'm guessing it's not what you
Yeah,
do now.
it's not even close. Little Megan wanted to be a marine biologist. And little Megan kept that dream going until she got to college. I actually applied to Roger Williams University to be a part of the marine biology program. And I did go through like maybe one or two of the prerequisites, and then I sat down with my the counselor or whatever they call it, the not a
Like
guidance
the
counselor in college, but
advisor.
someone,
Yeah.
the advisor, exactly. And she was like, you know that marine biology is going to have a lot of math, right? And I was like, no, I just, I want to play with animals. And she's like, well, your math is not your strong suit. Are you sure you want to pursue this? And it was at that moment that I realized I was gonna probably struggle through that major. And so I reevaluated. I picked a couple different majors, and then I finally landed on communications. And people asked me like, "Do you regret that choice?" And I was like, "Well, some days I would love to be working with animals over humans, but for the most part, I do think it was what the universe had intended for me."
It's funny. Like, we get a lot of people who say marine biologist. That is
I
a
know it was like a
common
thing,
idea.
apparently.
Yeah. I think all of
Yeah.
us who went to a zoo or an aquarium and saw a sea
Yep.
lion show or, something like that and thought instantly, that
Yep.
looks like fun, not realizing that,
Exactly.
math was a big part of it. Um,
And science and lots goes into that. So I just thought I was going to hang out with dolphins all day. So,
I mean, rightly so, rightly so. All right.
yeah.
So you graduate and what did you do?
So yes, I went forward with a communications major, and I focused on journalism, which is ironic because I never used one day of that journalism, track. I ended up getting a job right after college for a place that I had interned, and they hired me as an administrative assistant. And I always, when I'm out, I do a lot of speaking to college students, and I talk about how I had gone to school, I had gotten a degree in communications, and then I took a job as an administrator. And that was important because I had to earn my place, right, in the career world. And they ended up promoting me to the director of marketing and communications within, I think, like a month or two of my being there. And then that job allowed me to get my first, what I call like adult big girl job at Six Flags as the advertising and promotions manager. And that really shaped the next, the path that I was going to walk on, because it was more in the marketing field. And I hadn't really gone to school for marketing, but I learned so much while being there about marketing, advertising, public relations. And that's sort of why I think, the universe had a plan for me. And that is an area that I tend to excel in.
Yeah. And, when knowing your story and, reading your LinkedIn and knowing you as through some friends also, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Looking back at your career, I feel like you had so many times where you have been able to kind of find your voice, use your voice, kind of get out there and speak about things in a way that many people would avoid, right? Like from a very
Yeah.
courageous standpoint. And, when I meet people who do that, I'm always curious as to kind of where does that come from for you? Like, where were some of those moments
Yeah.
where you thought, okay, right, I have to stand up and talk about this? And I think from everything
Yeah.
from getting diagnosed with skin cancer at 19, which that had
Yeah.
to have been I mean, I
That
think
was a
of,
catalyst.
yeah, like a
Yeah,
huge, traumatic and, just
for sure.
life
Yeah, quite the
changing
experience.
moment.
Yeah, I definitely I talk to people a lot about going through a cancer diagnosis during college, right? And those are, formative years. They're the years of your life where you're having the most fun, you're free, you're, finally out of your parents' grasp, and you're learning what it's like to be an adult and care for yourself on your own. And to have the experience disrupted by a melanoma diagnosis was traumatic, but I also think it was a part of my journey that was going to help me be more articulate, be able to open up to people, be able to share. And so my story is unique, and I appreciate. Thank you so much for those kind words, because at the age of 19 or 20 years old, when I was finally free and clear of cancer, and I was doing a lot of spokesperson work, it was scary. I had cameras in my face all the time. I ended up becoming a spokesperson while in college because at the time, we didn't know that skin cancer was impacting college age young women very prevalently. And so the Skin Cancer Foundation found me, Impact Melanoma found me, the Melanoma Research Foundation found me, and everybody wanted me to be a face and a voice for the disease because I was 20 when I had it. And it was it was a great way to bring awareness to that age group. And so I did a lot of really high pressure interview type stuff at a very young age. I ended up going down to New York City. I was one of the American Academy of Dermatology spokespeople, and I did interviews with the Associated Press and Inside Edition and the Mike and Juliet show and NBC Nightly News. And like, that's a scary thing to do when you're 21 years old.
Scary thing for
But
people to do at any age and
yeah,
any skill level and like with lots of life experience, but to do it at that young age, right? Like you definitely had some
it was,
chutzpah,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, I think and I think that was my parents and my sisters. I'm the youngest of 4 and there's a pretty wide age gap. My sisters are 10, 13 and 15 years or 11, 13 and 15 years older than I am. And so I grew up around strong, mature women at a very young age and I think it was just one of those things where I found my voice. I felt comfortable talking about my own personal story. If you're going to do an interview about something, what are you going to know better than your own life journey, right? And so I think it taught me to be able to articulate and advocate as well, and maybe talk about things that are a little uncomfortable or challenging.
Which is such a great skill. I think of how many teams I get out there and I work with around conflict and conflict management and communication and how do you have tough conversations or how do you bring up a topic that you don't really want to, but you have to. And
Yeah,
it's a skill that most adults don't have. And to get it at such a young age, kudos to you. So,
thank you.
right, we fast forward a while, like you had a string of jobs, like most people in their 20s and early 30s. Um, and it's, from reading your bio, it sounds like some of these did not really work out too well. And finally, you were decide, screw it, like I'm going to start my own thing where,
Yeah.
right, where it's going to be a good culture and a good workplace for people.
Yeah, that you hit the nail on the head. It was one of those, I experimented a lot in my 20s with, do I want to work for profit? Do I want to do nonprofit work? I think not every, but I think a lot of young people go through that almost like mini existential crisis in their 20s. Like, am what I'm doing every single day, is it making an impact? Am I making a difference, or am I just making someone else money? Right. And so for a long time, I worked in the nonprofit sector because I wanted to get up every morning and feel like I was making a difference. Whether it was saving lives or helping with food insecurity or whatever the case may be, I wanted it to be meaningful. And so, that definitely helped me sort of figure out what my path was going to be. And starting the business allowed me, it was clear, like, right. Like I'm a big, I know I say the universe a lot. Like I really do feel like you have a couple different paths you can take, but the universe is sort of lining up best case scenarios for you. And I dealt with a lot of crap, if I may say that, in the for profit and nonprofit sector. A lot of being questioned, a lot of, I thought I was hot shit when I was in my 20s, right? Like we all do. And then I
As
look
you
back at it
should.
now and I'm like, oh, I was like, I didn't know everything that I thought I knew. And but I also knew I was really good at what I did, and I didn't want kudos or congratulations. I just wanted to be heard, and I wanted my concerns to be taken seriously, especially from a PR perspective. I wanted to be taken seriously, and a lot of times I was put into roles where it quickly became about the way I looked and how I was dressing, and I was too confident, or I there was just it didn't matter what I did, right? Like there was somebody was going to find fault with it, and so the universe made it pretty clear that I needed to start my own thing, and it started as a side hustle for many years, and then it was clear I needed to rip the Band-Aid off and make it full time.
And that's a big leap for most folks. I think of
For
so
sure.
many of the entrepreneurs that I've coached through the years, or just friends of mine, or even myself, having something as a side gig that you're like, oh, this is great. Like, it's the extra money. Like, this is what allows me to go on vacation or, you know, get my nails done and like those types
Get
of
my
things.
massage.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, one day that moment hits where you think, oh, wait, maybe I'm ready for this to be full time. How did
Yeah.
like when did that come to you? Like what was your realization moment of it's time to do this? Because I know for me it was legitimately having my job eliminated, right? I was working somewhere and they're
Yeah.
like, "Hey, like we no longer need you in this role." And I thought, "Oh, okay, well if there's ever a time to do it, now is it." And
It's
7
it.
years
Yeah.
later I'm still going. So, what
Yeah.
was that moment for you?
I think I think it was a sequence of moments, right? I think, I left a very toxic work environment to go work full time for what I thought was going to be like the end game, my ultimate dream job. That I had, volunteered for the organization for many years. And so I still had the company. But I was like, I can do both because I can control what I take in from a side gig hustle, right? If I don't have the time to do it, I don't have to take on the project. So I kept it going on the side and I ventured into this full-time role. And about 3 years into it, I realized I had found myself right back where I had always found myself. I was not being taken seriously. I wasn't being trusted to do the actual work tasks that I was assigned to do. I wasn't being involved in major discussions about marketing and PR. And I brought it to the attention of our company director, and she really dismissed it. She
Mm.
she just didn't see it from my perspective. She didn't understand how frustrating it had been for me. And so that was sort of the moment where I was like, okay, I need to really reevaluate. Am I ever going to be happy in a role reporting to someone else? And I always make a joke, I left having one boss to having 20 bosses,
Mhm.
right? Like I have 20, when I have 20, 30 clients or whatever. Now I've got 20, 30 bosses, but uh it was clear that, and what made it really easy, there's a couple things that I like to call out. This company did end up actually becoming a client for many years, and
Mhm.
so the transition wasn't as abrupt or painful. And also my husband was like, this, you need to do this, right? Like you need to do this. We'll be okay financially. We'll figure it out. He was very supportive because entrepreneurism is a roller coaster, as you know. Like some
It
days
is.
you're heading up the hill and you're terrified, and the other days you're come crashing down, and it it's not always consistent and it's not always stable. And so I needed to know that I had some stability at home in order to be very unstable from a professional standpoint.
And having that person, right? Be it a spouse, be it a partner, be it a
Yep.
best friend or a family member, right? Having somebody there who like has your back and lifts you up to say, right, you got this is such a big part of it. It's hard to do this alone because you do have that emotional roller coaster as well as like we said,
Yeah.
right? Like the financial roller coaster. I feel like there are months where I'm like, am
Yeah.
I ever going to make a dollar ever again? And then there are months where I'm like,
Right.
hey, we should be taking a cruise around the world next summer because I've made so much money, right? It's like
Yep.
it's this like
Yep.
constant up and
It's
down
crazy.
and it's it can be hard for many people.
everybody's not built for that too. Like, and
No,
I'm not built for it. Like,
I'm
there are
not
plenty of
either.
moments where, oh my God, I just like to know, like, and I'm a projector. Like, I like to not project like emotion, but I mean, like, I
Right.
look forward, like, I look ahead. I want to know what the next 3 months look like. And that's one of the things that I've had to really readjust my expectations because I'll sit there and I'll go over budgets and I'll look at staffing and I'll look at the clients that we have and I'll say, okay, this is what the next 6 months look like. And then the next day, inevitably, we'll get a new client or we'll get a client that's like, I got to pull back on my retainer. And it's like all that work I just did. So I've started to say to myself, to my team, you're getting 1 month ahead. Like I'm gonna tell you what May looks like. And then in May, I'm gonna tell you what June looks like because I can't possibly like you just can't as an entrepreneur. And it's hard for people. I think that's really challenging to live in that sort of like unstable environment.
I feel like you're talking about my brain, right? I think of how many times I'll wake up first thing in the morning and think, okay, so let's see, where are we now? We're April. All right, so this is what May looks like. This is what June looks like. And then I'm like, well, I know I have
Yeah.
this thing in December. So this is what December looks like. And like, oh my God, am I going to get paid in October? And I'm like, wait, it's 6 months out. Like, of course I'm going to get paid in
Oh my
October. I
gosh.
just, right, I need to like take a
Yeah.
breath and know that
Right.
we'll get
Right.
there eventually.
Yeah, and you'll figure it out. And it's yeah, I totally understand that because you just want to make sure and you don't want to like disappoint your family member that supported you and you have responsibilities that you have to fulfill and it definitely I always it's funny because I always and they people tell you not to do this, right? People are like if you have a safety net or if you have a backup plan, you're never going to live to your full potential, but I have
Mm,
always had a second gig, like a little side hustle. And so I do content production for a major news website. I do my own personal influencer type marketing stuff. I do speaking engagements. And that's my separate stuff. And I used to teach. I actually used to teach at the collegiate level. I would pick up as an adjunct classes here and there at universities around New England. So I do think if you have the ability to do it, it's not a bad idea to sort of have that little side thing even as you launch your business, because to me, it's always helped me feel a little bit more secure.
100%. I recommend that to everybody, right? If you have a full
Yeah.
time job, have a little side gig. And yes, there are times in your life you probably don't have the time or the bandwidth, right? Like you got 3-month-old twins. You're probably not having, like, oh, what should I do
That's your
with my
side
extra
gig.
hours, right? It's totally your side gig. And though they are
Yep.
sucking money out of your life, then as opposed to helping you there. But I agree
Yep.
100% to always have something as a side gig because it's going to make you feel more secure. And even if you work for somebody else these days, right? That's not a given. There's been a ton of
Yeah.
layoffs lately and people are out there looking for jobs. It's a tough job market. So, at least when you work for
Absolutely. And
yourself, it's on you, right? You have to decide what you're
yeah.
going to hustle to get the next gig.
Yeah. And I think it also helps like with your passion, your creativity. Like my side gig has always sort of re-energized me and it's given me something because let's not kid ourselves. Like when your passion becomes work, it's work, right? And so
Hmm.
I have to sometimes take a step back and say, okay, but you love what you do, like, but running a business can drain you. And so to have a little thing on the side that you get excited about, it might just help with that burnout and help
Yes.
prevent it a little bit.
And the balance. If you're a leader, you're probably moving really fast, making those decisions, solving problems, carrying responsibility. Our executive coaching here at Maxity helps you to create the space to clarify your leadership vision, to harness your strengths, and to navigate the real challenges with intention. You'll leave every session sharper, more aligned, and ready to lead in a way that's distinctly yours. Learn more at maxity.com. That's maxady.com. So tell us
Yeah.
about Chikmedia. Like what? So
Yeah.
what is Chikmedia? What do you do? I've always loved the name. So
Thank
like
you.
aside
Yeah.
from
So
fun,
we are, yeah. Yes. So that's great. I love that that's the interpretation because that's what it is meant to be. We're a full service marketing and PR firm. We focus on women entrepreneurs, women business leaders. We work with a lot of nonprofits. And those nonprofits just tend to be mostly female staffed or female led. And we do everything from, social media content production to website build to brand to um, PR and expert positioning. And we really help clients where they're at. Like if a client comes to us and says, I've had my brand for 10 years, I need a refresh, or I've had my business, or I'm just launching my business, we custom design where we think they need to be in terms of their external communications, marketing, and PR. So that's us in a nutshell. And the name was born out of the sexual harassment and kind of taking back the word chick. It's spelled differently because we had to be different, of course. But it's really about women's empowerment and helping women find their voice through branding.
Love it. So I know you've also been getting out there and doing a lot of speaking, and still, I mean, not it's not new for you, but that I know from watching you on your social media that that's a newer area that you're leaning into more than you have in the past. So tell us a little bit about like what do you talk about? Like who do you like to talk to,
Yeah.
and what are you talking to folks about these days?
Yeah, I think, I so I used to speak primarily on melanoma and skin cancer
Mhm.
awareness, and I used to travel the country and I was a trainer and I would educate people on how to spot melanoma and things of that nature. And then I had to pivot and do almost like a personal brand change into marketing, public relations, social media. So I do get booked a lot for like social media one-on-one or 101 or crisis communication or personal branding and things of that nature. But I have started to get booked more for women's leadership, more inspiring and motivational type presentations, which is so not like was so terrifying to me when I got booked for my first keynote as like the inspiring morning keynote. And I was like, oh boy, I don't know that I can do that. But it ended up going really well. And so I've been getting a couple more of those, a lot of women's groups reaching out and saying, we'd like to have you at our breakfast or, and so I can speak from, anything on, it's a lot of like, when I go into those types of situations, it's a lot of finding your voice. It's a lot of what we're talking about today. How do I find the courage to speak up in a situation that's not great at work without this fear of retaliation and losing my job? How do I manage up? And so that's been really exciting because that's a relatively new avenue for me that I'm really, really enjoying.
That. And, when I think of the pieces of how do you speak up, it goes back to
Mm.
that, right at the beginning of our conversation, we started talking about too, but it's
Yeah.
hard for folks to do this. It's hard to
Yeah.
point out something that is not right, without that fear of
Yeah.
retaliation, without that fear of, are they all of a sudden going to find a reason to eliminate my job? What's advice that you give to folks, around, how do you find that courage to speak up when you feel you
Yeah.
really need to?
I think it's so it's so hard. And I always like to acknowledge that not everyone is in a position to maybe lose their job, right?
Mhm.
Like that the reality is that can happen and it did happen to me. I was very, very vocal about some really borderline illegal things that were happening at an organization I worked for, and they found a way to eliminate me. And not everyone can survive something like that. And so
Mhm.
what I always say to people is remain professional, document everything, right? If you are starting to notice things or things are starting to negatively impact the workplace, bring it up softly, document it. But then if it escalates, I want you to think about what do the next 5 to 10 years of my life look like? If I allow this to continue to happen, where am I going to be in a few years? Am I going to be miserable? Think about it as an investment in your mental health, your physical health, your happiness, and your joy, right? We can't just continue to turn a blind eye when something is happening because you're going to create a work environment for yourself that is so toxic. It is going to be nearly impossible for you to show up every day. And so I always encourage people to be professional and to go through the proper channels at first. But if you need to start building a case, then start building a case because you might find yourself in a position where, like I said, they're threatening to eliminate your position or your role. And you want to be able to have that documentation to back up what you've been doing.
Yeah, it's such a tricky moment. And as you had started to talk about that, it was reminding me of when the whole lean in movement had started.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
remember when I first read the book and everybody was like, "Oh, lean in, lean in." And at the time, I was a single parent to a 5-year old and thought, yeah, there's no chance I'm leaning in anywhere, right? Like I am staying
Yeah.
in my very safe little bubble as much as I can. And are there things that I see that, in an ideal world, maybe I could lean in and speak up about, or, right, lean in and work the way in the book, it was really about like the male kind of work
Yeah.
ethic out there. And I was like, yeah, that's just not for me because if I lean in and I lose my job, then I don't have a roof over my 5-year old's head, right? Like
Right.
I can't
Right.
do that. And I,
Yep.
as all these like lean in circles were starting, I remember thinking, oh boy, what a privilege, right? What a privilege to be
Yeah.
able to be the person who walks in the office one day and is like, hey, this is what I need. Or
Yeah.
I loved her perspective at one point when she was like, "Well, yeah, I had them use the office next to me for a nursery for my kids." And I was like, "In what world do I get to say that?" Right? I
That
mean,
happened. Right.
most of us would
It
have
yeah.
zero ability to make a demand around that level to say, "Well, your paternity leave policy sucks, so therefore I'm going to take over the office next to mine and my nanny is going to move into it with our two children."
Right.
It's like,
Yeah. That's kind of delusional a little bit. Like
right.
it's just, and that's why I always say like everybody's not in this position and don't feel a sense of guilt if you can't be out there fighting or advocating for other people because you have your own personal stuff that you have to make sure you are taking care of as well. But I think, there is strength in numbers, right? So if one of you said something, it's one thing, but if 5 of you are saying the same thing or 10 of you, they have to listen.
Hmm.
And I think we as women tend to kind of get a little nervous about joining together. Like one of my old places of work, we used to call it a witch hunt. Like we were like, okay, we're clearly a coven and they're coming for all of us. And this is like they're trying to burn us at the stake. But we found that strength with each other. And, we did what we had to do because you can impact change. You have to be consistent and you have to, again, be professional and respectful until it gets to a point where you might need to involve legal.
Hmm. And like you said,
Yeah.
right, thinking about how is this affecting yourself? How is this affecting your life? How is it, affecting,
Right.
your physical being, your mental well health, when that
Yeah.
mental well-being, all of those things come into such play because, work is not its own thing like out here by itself. It's so interconnected to every part of your life.
Yeah.
So,
It's so true. And it will literally drain you or energize you. And that is another reason why if you are finding something happening, you really have to think about what do I want my future to look like? Because we spend too much time at work to have it be a negative environment.
100%. All right, so let's get to a happier note here. So, what energizes you at work these days? Like, what are the things happening at work now for you that you're like, this is the stuff that I wake up every day and, want my calendar filled with
Yeah.
this?
Yeah, I think I've always loved PR and expert positioning. I love finding ways to help our clients get in front of media and the masses, really shining and showing their knowledge and why they are an expert in what they do. That's one thing that's very exciting to me. And it's something that I think a lot of people misunderstand. Like PR is not guaranteed. It is not uh, it's not easy. It requires you to be physically present a lot of times at interviews or podcasts or things, even like what we're doing here. And I think that can be tricky for some clients, just like with public speaking to say, oh, you're going on live television tomorrow. They're like, what? What did you sign me up for? But I really enjoy working with people and getting them to that point where they're comfortable doing it. The other thing too that we've been doing a little bit more of these days are internal communications assessments and plans. So
Mm,
looking at a company that has 25, 50, 100 employees. They might be at different physical locations or different sites, and they're hearing constantly from their staff, the communication here is broken. And so we come in and we assess it and we say, is it really broken? Or are they just not thrilled with, are they not reading your emails? Are they not thrilled with the type of communication that's coming out or the answers to the questions they're asking? And so we've been diving a little bit more into that aspect. And I think that's really important because I think poor communication can ruin good teams. And
Yes.
it's so not necessary. Like communication is a very, I think, not a skill that is innate to everyone. It's not something that people excel at necessarily. It's not like a given thing. And so you really do have to work at being a good communicator. And that's where we come in to help business leaders do that.
And so much of it too is that we all communicate so differently. One of the exercises I love
True.
doing with teams is to say, okay, let's pretend we had to plan a brunch together. I want you to now write what that email is going to be that you send to folks, right? You have the people who
Yeah.
start with the like, "Dear Megan, I hope you're having a great day. I would love to like invite you to this brunch. What are your food preferences?" Then you get the people who are like, "Here's my checklist," right? With no like hello or
Context.
anything, right? And
Mm.
but when you think about them, the person with the checklist is like, that's all they ever want. The person with the like
Yeah.
flowery wording is like, that's how they want to communicate. You go back and forth and you think, neither is wrong. They're just different
Yeah.
styles. And if like, this is where I see so much of that kind of tension happening. One of the folks on my team, Jen, she actually is certified in a assessment that's listening intelligence. And it's this really
Wow, that's
neat,
awesome.
quick survey that folks do that shows you how you listen. And it was very interesting to me because I love doing all of these types of things. But one of the listening styles is data. And it's
Yeah.
not my style, but if that's your style, right, you're not going to believe anything or even like perk up or pay attention until you hear the numbers.
Yeah.
And you're
Yep.
like, oh, that makes
Absolutely.
total sense. So if someone on your team is a data focused listener and you're not giving them any data, like they're the person who's like, Megan, my team doesn't know how to communicate. They don't know how to do this. And you're like, what are you talking about? They send everything out. It's like they're just
Yep.
not listening because it's not their style. So
Yeah, it's so true. And and some people want to be face to face and they want to have meetings. They want to read something and be able to go back to it. Some people want to watch a video, a video update. And so it's hard because especially if you have large teams, you can't
mhm.
necessarily please everyone, but trying to accommodate the different learning and data retention styles as best as possible, even if you're just making an effort. Sometimes it's just simply we're making an effort and we've hired a consultant and they're assessing and people go, oh, they've listened to me. They've heard that I find this challenging. And sometimes even that alone you'll see better results from surveys because people feel like you're taking them seriously and they're being heard.
Agreed, right? That's all that anybody really wants in their job, right? To be
Yeah.
heard, to be listened to, and to know that their voice matters.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, this has been a super fun conversation, Megan. We could go on forever, but then nobody listens to the whole podcast because they're too long. So, we'd love to jump in with some quick rapid fire questions at our end here to just, get to know
Um,
our guests a little bit more. All
yeah.
right, so here we go. Are you a coffee or tea person?
Ooh, I'm a coffee in the morning, a tea in the afternoon.
Nice. Are you a sneakers or heels person?
Healed.
I was guessing that, just, having seen a lot of your social media. So, um, all right. Are you an early bird or a night owl?
A night owl. I hate morning.
Excellent. We will not be scheduling 9 a.m. meetings with you. So,
Yeah. No, thank you.
excellent. Okay. Favorite ride at Disney?
Oh gosh. Oh my God, I have so many.
Oh, you can go one. You can do four. You can do one at each
I
park if you really need to.
Okay. Okay, love that. Yep. So Tron at Magic Kingdom, Flight of Passage at Animal Kingdom. Ooh, maybe Ratatouille at Epcot and Rise of the Resistance at Hollywood.
Nice. Have you been on Ratatouille since it is not 3D glasses anymore?
No.
They took it. Yes, we were there in January, and so you don't have to wear the 3D glasses anymore, so it's not quite as
Oh,
nauseating. Um,
okay, cool.
so yeah,
Cool.
yeah,
I'm excited.
new experience.
I'm going very soon, so that's great to know.
Excellent. There you go. Um, Excellent. All right. I feel like, and the last one we always ask everybody is, do you have a book recommendation for folks? Either, I always think of like, is there a book you love to gift people, or is there a book that you tell folks, okay, you really have to read this, either fiction or nonfiction?
So I knew this question was coming and I always dread it because I'm going to be totally honest with you. The types of books I read are so disturbing. I disassociate when I read and read like murder, thriller, very dark type books. So I don't have any like self-help books or anything
Oh,
that
it
I
doesn't
like
have
to
to be
give. I
that.
will
It can be
say
total, it can be total fluff.
total fluff. Okay. For when it comes to kids, Where the Wild Things Are is definitely the one that I gift to all new parents because that was my favorite as a kid. And then when it comes to women like me who love, documentaries, I say anything Frida McFadden or Karen Slaughter. Those are my two favorite authors. They're going to be dark and bloody and messed up books, but if you are into that sort of thing, those are the two to go to.
Fantastic. All right. So if our listeners want to go follow you, so they want to go check out your fun social media, because I will say your social media is definitely fun. Where can they
Thank
find
you.
you?
Yes. So on Instagram, I'm out with Megan, and Megan is Meghan. And then the company is at Chikmedia with an underscore at the end. And yeah, those are the two. I'd say Instagram is our primary platform and the place where we tend to have the most fun. So those are the ones worth checking out.
Excellent. And we will have those in the show notes for people so they can follow you. Well, thanks again for being our guest today, Megan. This was such a fun conversation.